Oh, I look rough. Okay, so just a fair warning, this is a long one, and the audio may be a little bit funny. I'm still struggling to figure out my audio system, but enjoy. Okay, so we're going to start writing those topics down. These are not the only topics you will be covering when you do your self-discovery journey, but these are just the few that I just decided to use for the journal video. We could spend hours on this, like, honestly. So the first one I did was self-worth, and then I went in with a different color, and I'm using different colors here to sort of semi-define how you would see them. My colors will be different to yours. The next one I did was family values. This is something I have to look at now because my partner and I made a decision that's very important to our life, and we're just looking at what a family would look like for us. And from there, we go on to relationships. This is not just with your partner, but this is also with your family, like your sisters, your brothers, your friends, and all that kind of thing. And your work stuff. I hated this color because it didn't show as well. In person, it shows really well, but on camera, it didn't show very well. So, like, I went over with my Koki and just, like, made like it visible for you guys. This is something that when you are developing in your own way, you need to consider how your growth is going to affect some relationships. I lost quite a few friends that didn't respect boundaries and things like that when I started going through this journey, and now that I look back, I'm like, okay, but we never should have been friends in the first place because my boundaries are now here and you were disrespecting it. So that's just something you need to figure out. So I keep flipping back and forth between the mind map and this topics page in order to try and cover the topics that we've touched in the video. Next one is life missions and goals. This is something that I think everyone should discuss with a therapist or a guidance counselor, just to sort of get an idea of where you want to go in life, and it helps you settle a lot of anxiety. It did with me. Now, I love the next topic. You'll see in a moment that I write it in as something that's quite important because I use quite a bright, dark color. Bright, dark color. Wow, Michaela. So the next one that I am trying to cover, and why am I taking so long to write this down? Oh, I know why. Okay. I was also looking at my laptop to try and make sure that I covered really important ones. This one is mental health. This is something that over the last, I'd say, 10 to 15 years has become more important in the therapy aspect, and in the fact that you are actually allowed to deal with your mental health. This is something that I urge everyone to do, and this is really important. The next one is a bit of like a touchy topic, and no, I don't mean religion. I am talking about spirituality. And this is something that, again, I had to discover on my own, because what it means to me is different as to what it means to you, although this is something that every therapist will tell you that you need to figure out on your own. So, now we are going to go on and start with topic number 1, self-worth. Now, I love touching on self-worth because it takes in quite a few of the important questions that we wrote down in the mind map, like what are your core values? This is something that is a big one. Okay, so here I'm just pointing out some of the questions that we used in the mind map, and I write down core values here to sort of start off self-worth, because if you're not working to your core values, you generally feel like you're out of place. The next question I ask is, what affects your self-esteem? This is something that everyone can ask. I know it's not just me specific, just to sort of like gauge where you are with yourself. And this is a very important way to do it. You have to figure out what affects your self-esteem in order not to fight with yourself in that sense. The next question I write down here is, do I make time for myself? And that is a very important question you have to ask yourself because, well, let's be honest, if you don't, what is the point in life? And you see here I'm taking a coffee break quickly. And then we move on to, and I think I repeat myself here, where I write, what are your 3 core values? And this is something that most therapists will ask you just sort of off the bat, like, what are your 3 core values? Because if you know your 3 core values, you can move on to the rest of them. The next time is, when last did you check in on yourself? This is something that I think is really important, because if you do not check in on yourself, you can end up pile of tearful mess on the floor. And I have been there a few times, and this is why it's such an important question. The next one I ask here, and this is one that I have to answer myself, but you can definitely answer yourself as well, is what scares me the most right now? And there are quite a few answers to that I will not be sharing with you, but ask yourself the question and actually really truly answer yourself. It's very interesting. This is something, the next one here, what brings me joy. This is something that you have to consider as your life purpose as well. And the next one that I write down is literally, what is my life purpose? These two interlink very much so. Because what brings you joy and what your life purpose are could be the same value, but it could also be something that is completely different. And then the next one that I write here is, what is my personality type? And this is something like I said, I will link it down below for you guys to figure out on your own. This is something that grows and adapts as you grow and adapt through this journey as well. The next question I ask is, do I prioritize my mental health? And I'm going to wait until you can actually read it there. This is mental and physical health. Mental and physical health. This is something that you have to prioritize, because if you're not feeling good mentally and physically, every other aspect of your life will then be affected. So, here we go for self-worth. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now we start with the family and the family values. So this is something that you can touch on quite a few different topics within this one. I touch basically on the, and I use a lot of shorthand here, so I apologize in advance. On the family, as in like your mother, your father, your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents, that kind of vibe. So here I go. The first question I ask here is, who do I go to when I need advice? This is something that you really do need to consider, especially if you're thinking of having a family of your own, because you want to create an environment that makes you happy. And if you didn't have that as a young adult or a child, you want to then change that, obviously. And then, are there certain family members who drain my energy, and why? I have to say yes to this question, but and I don't waste much time on them anymore. I try and give them as much as I can without draining myself, but there are people that I cannot actually spend too much time with. And then, do I trust my family's opinion above my own? This is something that I think when you are learning as an adult what your values are, you have to look at what you learned from family, and if you're willing to figure out the differences and the similarities between your opinion and theirs. And a lot of there are some family members that I struggle to see eye to eye with, because our opinions are different, and you might have the same situation. Next one is, how well do I know my family members? And then, would I make a good parent is the next question I ask myself. This is very personal, but it also can be a universal question to ask people, as obviously as human beings we wonder, are we going to carry forth our DNA? The next one I ask myself is, do I make a good sibling? I have three sisters, one biological and two step, but we grew up together, so we're very close. We used to be very close. I don't know now, actually. But yeah, I have to ask myself if I make a good sibling, because I'm a little bit of the outcast. I'm the black sheep. The next one is, do my family respect my boundaries? If not, why do I allow them not to? This is a very important question, as it is also one you have to ask yourself with other people as well. Does this person respect my boundary? If not, why do I allow them to overstep so often? With family, it is a little bit more difficult to get people to try to respect your boundaries, and it can hurt quite a lot more if you have to enforce those boundaries. It can change the dynamic of a relationship, and it is something you need to consider. The next and last question in the family values one is, what values are important for me when I raise a family? And like I said earlier, this is something you need to figure out. Are you going to be carrying over your family's things? And if you are, What are you going to be carrying on? If you're not, what will you be carrying forward that you have learned through this journey? This is all very important, and I hope that this helps others build a better family environment in the future. The next one we go forward with is relationships. And I am going to take a sip of water now, losing a lot of breath here. Now, like I said earlier, relationship does not just apply to your partner and yourself, but it also applies to friendships, families, and like colleagues. Here in this one, I have specifically touched on a partner relationship, but there are plenty of questions that we can touch on when we get to this part in later videos if you'd like. You can always just pop me a question down below and I will be sure to include it in my topic video. So the one I start with here is what do I look for in a partner? And this is something you have to ask yourself because we are given examples in our everyday life that may not line up with our core values. So when we look at a relationship that we want to have a partner, we want to make sure that our partner sees our core values and does not disrespect for them, and that we have a good standing in the fact that we don't clash and all of that. There's so many different ways I can explain this. Next one are what values should we share, the ideal. Yeah, we've just gone on to that. Do my partner and I want the same things? If not, can we achieve them separately together? This is a very important one that I feel a lot of couples do not look at. Yeah. Is jealousy a problem for me? If so, what underlying issues do I need to work through? This is something that you could even look at with your friends, your family. Again, not all of these questions are partner specific. They can be relationships in general. And these are important things you should consider in order to become a better version of yourself. Oh, I'm busy writing that one now. Lol. A little bit ahead of the video, but it's okay. I find that I tend to ask myself these on a daily basis in order to try and like adapt as I go along with my learning journey. So the next question I ask here are, what are my love languages? I also include something I learned from the, what's his name? The monk? He's known as the monk. I can't remember his name right now. But on Instagram, I watched one of his videos and it included, I included here your fight languages. Him and his wife both have fight languages. I'm going to remember his name in a moment and then I'm going to hate myself for not knowing it here. And this is something you need to consider in all relationships, not just with your partner, but also with all your relationships, so that you have a better understanding of who you are as a person, how you adapt, and how you live your life. And then one last question I wanted to touch on here is, do my partner and I work well as a team? And this is something I think is a very important question to ask, especially if you're looking at a long-term relationship with the partner you're with. You want to make sure that you guys work well as a team in order to better stand against different things that you might come up against in life. And so now we're just sort of like looking at the pages to make sure that you guys can see them better and write down the questions you may need, and we're moving forward to the next topic. Here I used a very simple version of the life missions and goals, and I just wrote life purpose. I go in with my pen again to just make it more visible for you, because for some reason, again, I filmed this late at night, and my lighting was not the greatest. But like I said earlier, I'm doing this within my own time limits, so yeah. So let's get started. On the life purpose topics, I write very MB here, like very important. What do I want to do with my life, regardless of cost and restrictions? And this is very important because your life purpose will link up to your core values at one point, and this is why you have to go, regardless of restrictions, what do I want to do with my life, so that you can put forward a plan in order to actually execute it. This is something that one of my more recent therapists taught me as a young adult. I think I was 25 when I started seeing her, and it was one of the core questions she asked me in many of our sessions, and it helped me develop a plan that made me look more seriously at life, because as a young adult I only looked at what I can do for the now. The next question I ask is, what are you willing to struggle for? And this is something that, when you look at your life purpose, are you willing to go through hardship in order to reach your goals? That is important. If you're not willing to do it, then the goal is not important enough to you. And I think it's a very important question to ask yourself, because you don't want to be struggling for things you don't want. The next one is, can you do your favorite thing as a job or even as a side hustle, hobby, or do you want to keep it separate? And again, I write at the bottom of this, I'm getting to this point in the video here, NB, because I think it's a very important question to ask yourself. I do my core life purpose as a hobby because I can't yet afford to just do it on its own. I didn't have the background that sort of helped me get to it, and as an adult I discovered it was a core value of mine and something I wanted to do, and therefore I find this to be a very important question to ask yourself. So let that sit for a little bit. I grab a highlighter to just highlight the very important aspect of this, and then I write down, what is your personal vision statement? This does not have to link to anything else we've talked about. This can be for your self-love journey, this can be for work, this can be for your hobby, this can be for anything. But what is your personal vision statement? And this is something you have to ask yourself. Put it somewhere where you can see it every day, and make 100% sure that you are working for yourself in this. The next question is, I write here literally, is there somewhere where you can see it and be reminded of every day? And I think it's very important. I had mine up on the board in front of my bed. My cupboard is my board because I have quite a small space. And it was something I looked at every day, and it did actually help me improve my journey. And then I write a very simple one as the last one we're going to tackle for life purpose. What inspires you? Because what inspires you generally links to your core values, which will then link to your number one here, which is the what do I want to do with my life regardless of cost or restrictions. And now we move on to one of my favorite and one of the most important ones in my opinion, mental health. I think mental health check-in is something everybody absolutely should do, because it is something that everybody struggles with, and it is something that everybody has. It is not person-to-person specific. It is person-to-person specific, and it is not limited to just people who have quote-unquote mental health issues, but it affects everyone. Now, I take a coffee break over here, and I'm actually going to take a water break right now. Oh, that's good. When you're talking a lot, your mouth tends to get dry quickly, and it's hilarious. I haven't done one of these in a while. And then the first question I write down here is, have I checked in with myself lately? And that is something I feel everyone needs to stop, pause, and ask themselves. Have you checked in with yourself lately? I will pause for dramatic effect. And my next question is, what stresses me out the most? This is something that when you look at your life purpose, you can actually find your stresses when you're looking at what you want to do with your life. You can go, okay, this stresses me, this stresses me, this stresses me. This gives you an outlay of your plan for the future. And then the next question I ask here is, in order to sort of link, is, what is my stress relief method, and does it actually work long term? This is something you should discuss with your therapist in order to find different long-term methods that can help you. It may not work immediately. I have about 2 or 3 different methods that I use for short term and 2 or 3 different methods that I use for the long term. And it is very important to have both. The next thing is that check-in I was talking about. How are you really? And I literally mark this in like bright, I think this is a red or pink. It's a pink. It dries pink. And this is something I want everyone to literally actually spend the time to stop and question. Because if you're not, what can you do to better your current mental state? Again, this is something that I find so important and I think everybody should do. So please, if you want to reach out. I will link the email down below for you. Okay, and then these are just a few that I think are important in general. The question I wrote down here is, where does your comfort zone end? Are you taking steps to actively go out of your comfort zone? Are you shorthand? Or do you stay inside your comfort zone? And I think this is very important to ask yourself in order to sort of better understand where you are in life and where you're going with life. Another question you can often ask yourself is, are you too hard on yourself? And this is something you should probably have a therapist help you work through, because we often have blinders when it comes to ourselves. I think there's a song or a book or something that says, I give love to others, but I don't really give it to myself. If I find it or remember what it is, I will link it down below and flash it here on screen. If I don't, I haven't remembered it. And the next one is, what do you often feel guilty about? I am speeding through this in my talking. And what are your insecurities? So these two will link, and this is something, again, I think you should discuss with a therapist to sort of better understand where your core areas for improvement are. And the last question that I write down here, you can't really see it at the moment, but I will pause just now for you to be... Oh, there we go. What are you struggling with right now? And this is something I think that everyone should discuss with, a counselor or a therapist, because we live with blinders and we generally don't see what we're struggling with in general. So, yeah. My friends, I think we're moving on to the next topic in a few seconds. And this is a touchy one, so I do apologize, but this is something that one of my therapists said that everybody should figure out on their own, versus what we were taught. And this is spirituality. This can link to anything that you describe as spiritual. I am not a religious person, but my family is, and therefore I had to go through a hard learning curve with this. And the first question that I think you should ask yourself, and I am not going to go further with this, is baseline: do I consider myself religious, spiritual, or nothing of the above? And this is something that I think you should ask yourself, but I will not be discussing in my videos because I think this is very personal and, again, changes from person to person. But you should figure it out for your own understanding of self. And then spiritually, you should ask, and this is, I love this one. This is, what helps me reconnect to my soul? And I love this one as it's very important, because your spirit and your soul are a very important part of yourself, and if you do not reconnect with it, you can find living disconnected leaves you very, very empty. The next one is, this is a question I had to ask myself, and I included it here because there's not many questions I want to discuss here. How do I feel about non-dominational, even if my family and partner might be? Again, I will not be discussing my experience here, as this is a very, very personal journey, but this is one that I think it's quite important if you are in two different types of mindsets. Like, I was raised religious but chose not to be because I don't connect to it, and my partner was not raised religious, so we have a lot of things to discuss and change and understand. And with my journey, I discovered that I have very different views on things. From what and who do you draw strength from when you are having a difficult time? This is something that, again, I'm not going to discuss further. This is a question you should ask yourself in order to understand what your soul connects to. And then I enjoyed this one with my therapist, and I think everyone who doesn't believe in religion should. Even those who do believe in religion, actually, let's put it that way, because this is an interesting one, and to find out what you truly believe versus what you've been taught is actually interesting. What do you think about after this life? What do you believe in, and does it affect how you live your life? The one I discussed with my therapist was very interesting, and it taught me a lot about myself, and therefore that's why I'm including it here today. Water break. Humans, do not come for me, please. I promise I will not be discussing spirituality further. And here I just include a thank you message, and I just want to say thank you for spending half an hour of your life watching this video. I will be seeing you next week for a topic discussion, and then I say here, as always, I will link all my sources of my research down below, and I'll see you guys next week in order to take a deeper dive into some of these incredible questions. I look forward to going into topic discussions with you guys. Again, I say this, that you can write any questions you have down below and just what topic they fall under. If they are not part of any topic, I will create the topic. Like I said, these are not the only topics you can discuss in self-discovery. If I don't do it in video, I will do it on my blog. I will link that down below for you as well. And as always, I have loved having you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to sharing your journey with you. Sending you love, light, and rainbows, my lovely humans. Thank you so much for sharing this time with me. Bye-bye.